It is vital to investigate a fundamental topic when discussing thinking, and that question is, where do our thoughts actually originate from? The majority of people have the experience of struggling with thoughts that appear to come out of nowhere, and they frequently have the impression that these thoughts originate from outside sources rather than from within their own minds. It is possible for these thoughts to materialize as permanent patterns, such as sentiments of envy, competitiveness, or even feelings of menace and terror, which stay in our consciousness almost like shadows. Some people have the disturbing experience of being roused from their sleep in the middle of the night by anything that causes them to question whether or not such occurrences are merely a natural part of the human condition. Is it possible that these thoughts are not merely a collection of random thoughts, but rather the keys to comprehending a more profound reality about our existence? Is it possible that they have the ability to solve puzzles that we have not yet begun to conceive of? Get ready to embark on a trip that will test all you believe you know and uncover unexpected revelations that have the potential to alter your viewpoint for the rest of your life. An inquiry of a similar nature was posed to the Buddha. Because he did not answer it, I will first tell you what he said, and then I will respond to it. It was someone who asked him a question like that, and he responded with a similar story. It was he who made the statement, "You have somebody who shot you with an arrow. There is an arrow that has become lodged in your body, and before you remove it, you are attempting to determine the origin of the arrow. It is necessary for me to determine who shot it, why they did so, and where it originated before I can remove it. So, let's look into this matter in further depth." It was his response to that. Instead of attempting to figure out where everything began, he was suggesting that our primary focus should be to remove the arrow. He was asking us to stop trying to figure out how everything began and where it all originated. This was the teaching that he imparted. It was extremely practical and completely practical. Despite the fact that not all aspects of Buddhism are as practical as they once were, there are still aspects of Buddhism that are practical in comparison to other traditions. However, when Buddhism was first being taught, it was completely practically applicable. The arrow was removed. It should come as no surprise that the arrow represents suffering, specifically any kind of suffering that is brought about by one's own thinking. Therefore, that was his response. Of course, I concur with it, and I have no doubt that we all do as well. Going a little bit farther than that, thought seems to imply that there is such a thing as a collective mind, and that a great number of thoughts are not your own thoughts. They are energy fields or energetic beings that one could almost conceive of as small bubbles floating around. They are actually something that emerges from the collective consciousness. Although I haven't actually witnessed any bubbles, I have seen small bubbles, which are idea forms, floating around. It's possible that they are not literally true. If the thought form finds any resonance with something that is contained within you, such as any type of negativity, then there is a thought form in the collective mind that is an even more weighty thought form of negativity. First, there is a tiny irritation about something that was stated today, and then there is another thought form that connects with that negativity, and then that little bubble appears. As soon as you realize it, the annoyance has developed into something more significant. Therefore, you establish a connection with the consciousness of the universe, and it moves through you. There is a great deal more to our so-called minds than just our own minds when we are dealing with them. It is not simply for your own benefit that whatever knowledge comes within you, it has an effect on the entirety of the collective mind. If you experience an increase in your own awareness, it indicates that awareness is also rising in the minds of all people everywhere. So, it's not only a matter of personal preference. In a similar vein, any thought that takes control of your mind is not anything that can be considered truly personal. Personal thinking does not exist in and of itself. Rather, it is a pseudo-personal idea. It is the collective mind of all humans. In the same vein, any emotion that is triggered by that is not. It appears to be my emotion, but it is actually either rage, grief, envy, or whatever else it is. In essence, it is the same in each and every person. As it occurs, it attaches itself to somewhat varied tales in my head about the reasons why I am furious. Yet the fury is the emotion that is associated with being human. One more time, it is not yours. You pick it up, and then it takes hold of you without your knowledge. The majority of people who are alive today are living virtually with a mind that has taken possession of them, claims to be them, and they are stuck with it without even being aware of it. If they were aware of it, the first step toward freedom would have been taken. They have no idea, and if you tell them, they will become upset. Nonetheless, the mind will become angry because it perceives that it is being endangered. That means they are still human. They are unable to hear this because it would immediately threaten them, and if they did hear it, they would be completely overtaken by the mind. You will not hear this, and they will not be able to hear it either. You can see how, for instance, some forms of collective cognition can have the ability to gain control of a whole nation, as was the case during communism, Soviet communism in Russia, Maoism in China, when millions of people all thought the same thing. However, even in our culture, there is not necessarily a single monolithic thought form that is responsible for perpetuating it. Rather, there are a variety of thought forms that are propagated through the media. It is not uncommon for us to be unaware of the fact that our most fundamental assumptions, which pertain to how we see the universe and the world around us, are thought patterns that originate from the collective and have taken control of us. The fact that consciousness can take on any of these forms within the mind is, in and of itself, perfectly acceptable. If there is consciousness, then it is okay. Nevertheless, if thought is the only thing that exists, then it becomes destructive and insane in the absence of awareness. Obviously, the next thing you should ask yourself, if you're going to carry that, is why? What was the beginning of it all? Do you know where it originated? Doesn't that happen to be the arrow once more? My friend Jen and I often use the term, when you ask why, that is the lie. In point of fact, we use this phrase, just let it go and move forward. A significant insight comes to light when it comes to comprehending thinking. Ideas are not something that should be fought against, but rather instruments that can be utilized for investigation. It is common for them to show instances in which individuals allow themselves to identify with something that is not their actual essence, so producing a feeling of disconnection from the larger whole. This comprehension transforms thoughts into useful instruments, so facilitating the process of self-discovery and bringing forth inner clarity. Coming to terms with the nature of thinking can be a liberating experience. It is possible for people to experience a sense of helplessness and a sense of being trapped in a cloud of mental chatter when they become overly identified with their thoughts. It is as if they are drifting through patterns and communal mental frameworks that determine their perceptions and behaviors during these periods. It is as if they are essentially absent from their own lives. It is only through regaining control of one's mind and emerging from this state of unconsciousness that one may truly achieve true power. A transition from being controlled by external pressures to embracing the depth of consciousness is something that can be encouraged through this path of self-awareness. It reveals that thoughts can illuminate rather than cage, which motivates one to develop a more profound connection with both themselves and the world around them. The realization that one's thoughts do not constitute the entirety of one's identity opens the door to the possibility of being able to uncover a more genuine existence that is liberated from the constraints of mental patterns. To show your support for the road toward higher consciousness, please consider giving this video a like if you find this perspective to be meaningful. It is important to remember to subscribe to future videos that will go deeper into the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of thought. This will allow you to gain additional enlightening insights and content that can improve your life.